Uncertainty often greets you before the sun, stirring a restless age that clouds vision and widens every worry. Yet this dim hush asks whether heaven's perspective can steady your pulse until the day is clear. The first pale glow kisses the curtains, inviting a fresh seeing of hidden mercy and breathing quiet faith into bones, still heavy with yesterday's weight. You bless the God whose gaze pierces fog and storm, whose insight rearranges the rubble of plans gone awry. In this sacred pause you lay ambitions at his feet, choosing deliberate action over frantic striving, letting whispering winds recall the far horizon where promise outlasts pain. As 2 Corinthians 4:10, you fix your attention not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, for the seen is momentary, while the unseen is everlasting. Heaven's gaze reshapes every trouble into seedbeds of glory. What burden will you entrust? What desire will you release into his light? Now, as your heart grows still, we step into. You breathe in the subtle chill that rides the rim of dawn, and it feels as though the air itself is asking you to open the shutters of your spirit. All around, indigo yields to ember. Rooftops collect a hush that only robins dare to break, their tentative song coaxing your own sight to awaken. You sense that true vision is more than the mechanics of eyes. It is the soul's decision to notice holy fingerprints on ordinary things. You stand at a window or linger on a porch, watching light sketch the outlines of trees, and every branch seems to pronounce, "Behold." In that moment you realize how quickly yesterday's headlines and deadlines had numbed your wonder, flattening the world into data and demands. Yet wonder is the doorway through which God's wisdom walks, and you are invited to step over its threshold. Open my eyes that I may see wonderful things in your law. Psalm 119, this plea, breathed by an ancient psalmist, rises now from your lungs. It is both confession and permission. Confession that your natural vision is narrow, permission for God to broaden it beyond habit. As light brightens, memories of bruised conversations or unfinished tasks try to tug your attention back into the maze. But you resist the pull by naming each tension aloud, offering it like a sealed envelope to heaven's post. You acknowledge fatigue, disappointment, or even the dull cynicism that sometimes settles over noble goals, and you ask for vision that reframes them as sites of potential redemption. This is not denial of reality, it is sight purified by grace, capable of holding complexity without despair. You picture Jesus touching the blind man's eyes. First the trees walking like people, then the crisp reveal of faces, and you sense that your own clarity may unfold in stages. So you refuse to despise partial glimpses. Instead, you cherish each shard of illumination, trusting it will gather into a mosaic of purpose. A gentle breeze stirs leaves into a rustling chorus, and you perceive the Spirit's nudge. Look again at those near you whose struggles you have overlooked. Perhaps a co-worker's sarcasm hides loneliness, or a neighbor's curt nod masks fear about finances. Vision, once awakened, bends outward in curiosity, scanning for stories rather than labels. You pray that every glance today becomes a silent benediction, every meeting a chance to spy the image of God beneath frustration or frailty. You ask that the lenses of resentment be swapped for compassion, the tinted glasses of self-preservation for transparency. For only eyes bathed in divine light can spot the small doors where love must enter, and the narrow bridges where reconciliation begins. Before moving on, you linger in silence, letting morning beams settle on your forehead like a blessing. You whisper, "Show me what you see." The words are simple, but they tilt the entire day toward possibility, like a compass resetting to true north. In that posture, your agenda loosens and your awareness sharpens. A holy combination that prepares you to trace heaven's contours upon the canvas of earth. You rise from the quiet window and imagine stepping onto a ridgeline above low, hung clouds, where valleys of unresolved problems blur beneath a silver mist and the horizon spreads wide like an open scroll. Up here the scale changes. Quarrels that felt mountainous now resemble ridges of sand, and deadlines shrink to dotted paths, threading fields of possibility. You sense God's invitation to trade tunnel vision for panorama, to lift your gaze until compassion eclipses complaint. The wind presses your jacket, a gentle reminder that unseen forces guide what you see, and you decide to let the Spirit tilt your viewpoint until mercy becomes the truest metric for everything that follows. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways and my thoughts than your thoughts. Say Isaiah 55:9. These words draw you to breathe slowly, accepting that divine strategy surpasses your spreadsheets. What appears delayed may actually be aligned with an unseen convergence of grace. With that promise swirling, you review today's agenda from this altitude. A difficult conversation scheduled for mid-morning no longer looms as a threat, but as a runway where humility can land and heal. The budget shortfall revealed in last night's email transforms into fertile ground where creativity might sprout new streams of provision. Even global headlines of war and disaster, though still grievous, become canvases upon which intercession may paint strokes of hope. You realize perspective does not deny pain. It reframes it within an unbreakable narrative where resurrection always follows crucifixion. Dawn always follows shadow. You picture Christ seated above every power, yet leaning forward with infinite tenderness toward each anguished soul. That balance, sovereign height and personal closeness, becomes the lens for your interactions. When a colleague vents frustration, you recall the vast storyline behind momentary exasperation and answer with patience instead of defensiveness. When traffic snarls on the commute, you see an unexpected pause to bless strangers idling beside you rather than a theft of time. Perspective frees you from the illusion of control, teaching you to steward moments rather than dominate outcomes. To anchor this altitude, you craft a simple prayer of alignment. Guide my eyes, then guide my steps. You seal it with a deliberate pause, letting stillness confirm that heaven's viewpoint has already begun to permeate your muscles and moods. The day ahead may still carry unknown angles, but you carry a map etched by eternity, one that marks every detour as part of a larger pilgrimage toward redemption. Before descending, you scan the cloudscape once more, noticing shafts of sunlight piercing gaps in vapor and striking fields below. They look like spotlights on a stage where ordinary people await their cues. You promise to notice those beams during meetings, lunches, errands, any place where light singles out a need, signaling where love must act. Perspective, you understand, is never passive. It propels compassion that is both strategic and spontaneous, informed by God's overarching vision, yet tethered to the concrete cries of earth. With heart steady and vision scaled to grace, you begin the descent, ready to walk the streets of your life with eyes full of sky. You step onto the sidewalk while dawn paints amber stripes across storefront glass, and the city yawns itself awake around you. Delivery vans rumble. Traffic lights change from blinking caution to steady command, and hurried feet brush past. Yet your newly lifted gaze refuses to sprint. You match the tempo of sparrows along the curb, studying faces as though each were a stained glass pane in a living cathedral. A commuter adjusts ear pods, but a tremor on her lip betrays sleepless concern. A vendor reheats yesterday's broth, his smile stretched thin. So you slow even further, allowing tenderness to become your preferred lens. You notice the courier balancing two phones, his shoulders rigid under invisible debt. You catch the custodian's lingering gaze at a photo wedged beside his keys, hinting at distance he cannot bridge today. Heavenly perspective has awakened a vow. You will steward every observation as an opportunity for gentle rescue rather than idle curiosity. When he saw the crowds, he was moved with compassion for them, because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. St. Matthew 9:36. You recall that Jesus felt first and acted next. Vision steeped in mercy always prepares healing hands. You inhale that verse like crisp morning air and ask God to dismantle the quiet armor disappointment has welded around your empathy. You confess how easy it is to sort people into roles: barista, courier, analyst, rather than recognize saints in disguise. You resolve that every greeting will double as a whispered prayer. Let me glimpse the weight this soul carries and shoulder a corner of it. Suddenly errands turn sacramental. At the coffee counter, you learn the barista's name is Min and promise to remember it tomorrow. Compassionate seeing is not sentimental. It is brave and alert. It notices who is interrupted in meetings, who absorbs extra tasks without credit, whose laugh rings too hollow. It detects anxiety braided through a teammate's joke about layoffs and stores that hint for later intercession. It sees the empty desk and sends a note of concern before rumors sprout. This discipline trains your perception to chase stories behind reactions, refusing to dismiss tears or temper as mere mood. You sense the spirit tutoring each sense, ears tuned to sighs beneath laughter, eyes alert to fatigue concealed by cosmetics, hands aware of trimmers disguised as business. You remember how Jesus paused for the bleeding woman pressed by the crowd, how he spotted Zacchaeus perched above ridicule, how his gaze shattered Peter's shame, yet rebuilt his calling. You ask for that pattern, awareness that both reveals and repairs. Sight that ushers hope instead of pity. As you continue, morning light puddles on pavement like liquid gold, and each reflection reminds you that glory hides in unlikely places, gleaming from tear-streaked cheeks, shining within resilient resolve. You breathe a promise. I will not avert my eyes from pain. I will let it tutor me in mercy. The vow is quiet yet revolutionary, for the world ranks people by usefulness while heaven measures by belovedness. You choose heaven's metric. Before you reach the office door, you pause beneath a young plane tree whose leaves flutter like shy green flags. You let its rustle become a benediction over the city. May the weary find rest. May the unseen be noticed. May my vision widen into love. With a final inhale, you step forward, knowing every hallway can transform into holy ground when walked with watchful, tender eyes. You enter the building's revolving door and feel the subtle tremor that rises whenever unknown outcomes wait behind conference. Room glass, yet the same dawn that gilds skyscraper steel now infuses your backbone with quiet iron. Courage for you is not a trumpet blast. It is the steady drum of conviction that God already occupies every space you will cross. Elevators chime, fluorescent corridors stretch ahead, and you decide that each step will echo a higher rhythm than anxiety's staccato. The world measures bravery by dominance, but heaven calls it the willingness to trust unseen goodness while standing amid visible risk. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Sir Joshua 1:9. These ancient marching orders breathe into your lungs, replacing the stale air of self-reliance with oxygen drawn from promises that never expire. You picture Joshua's feet sinking into Jordan mud before the water receded. Courage always begins with souls in uncertainty. So you resolve that when tension rises in today's meeting, you will plant words of peace rather than match hostility. When a project falters and blame seeks a target, you will refuse the easy shelter of silence and instead speak truth that shields the vulnerable. This audacity is not reckless, it is calibrated to the tempo of grace, bold yet bridled by love. As mid-morning approaches, your inbox blooms with red exclamation points, but you no longer read them as doom. They are signals for prayer, soaked initiative. A client's terse demand becomes a chance to demonstrate patience under pressure. A report revealing stark shortfalls invites inventive generosity instead of panic. Courageous faith looks at shortage and sees seed, stares at conflict and scouts for reconciliation's narrow bridge. You rehearse a simple liturgy: breathe, listen, answer slowly. Saints who parted seas and toppled giants once practiced the same cadence. The afternoon brings its own gauntlet. A presentation before executives whose approval steers many livelihoods. You feel the flutter in your gut, yet you ground yourself by recalling that Christ faced councils armed with accusation and still spoke with calm authority. Because his identity was anchored beyond their verdict. You whisper, "Your presence is my credential." The phrase settles your shoulders, reminding you that outcomes rest in larger hands than yours. Sunlight shifts, slanting through blinds like golden spears, and you realize courageous faith also involves retreat. You schedule a 10-minute pause after the meeting, stepping onto a terrace where wind tussles your hair and loosens the knots ambition tied too tight. There, you thank God for battles both won and deferred, trusting Him to weave even delays into eventual triumph. You vow to safeguard such interludes. Because bravery depleted by constant output quickly mutates into bravado, only souls that rest can rise again in holy defiance. Evening shadows lengthen as you leave the office, and street lamps spark like sentinels along your route. Each glow feels like an affirmation. You have walked through uncertainties without forfeiting peace. Courageous faith may not trend on feeds or parade in headlines, yet it leaves footprints others can follow, prints that point beyond self, importance toward a kingdom where risk is redeemed and fear finds no lasting address. You exit the lobby and step onto sidewalks vibrating with lunch hour haste. Yet your pulse keeps the gentler tempo set by heaven. Restorative action begins as a deliberate reach, your hand extended beyond routine into yesterday's bruises. You recall Min at the cafe, the courier with rigid shoulders, the colleague whose laughter masked dread. Their names flutter like prayer flags across your conscience, and you choose one tangible gesture for each: a prepaid coffee, a note slipped beneath an office door, a quiet "How are you?" really become seeds dropped into cracked soil. As you walk, you picture Jesus kneeling with towel and basin, proving the throne of glory is never far from the floor of service, and your resolve sharpens. Lofty prayers demand earthy fingerprints. Mercy carries weight, a weight that may feel like staying late to proof a teammate slides or listening without crafting clever counsel. Your to-do list stretches, yet lightness grows, because generosity is oxygen for the soul. In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. 7 James 2:1 Scene. James's blunt reminder jolts you awake. Living belief must pulse through muscles, budgets, calendars, and conversation, or else it stagnates into theory. The afternoon unfolds like a field of invitations. You notice an intern wrestling code and pull up a chair, guiding patiently until the error untangles. Mentoring becomes liturgy. You redirect credit during a meeting, letting a quiet designer's work shine. Honor rises like incense unseen. Part of your lunch budget flows into a relief fund for flood survivors. Compassion crosses oceans through digital rivers. Restorative action scales from whispered kindness to systemic advocacy, painting redemption in strokes both minute and massive. Yet mending must also happen within. Between tasks you slip into a stairwell, breathing deep to confront resentment, still smoldering towards someone who wronged you last quarter. Forgiveness, you discover, is interior construction that stabilizes exterior bridges. You release the debt, whispering, "What you cancel in me, let me cancel for others." And peace trickles back like cool water over heated stone. Near days close, a storm rolls in, drumming against windows while streetlights flicker awake. The office buzz thins, yet you linger to finish one last act, organizing surplus supplies for donation instead of landfill. Rain's percussion accompanies the rustle of boxes. Each taped lid seals a promise that broken worlds can be stitched with consistent, unspectacular faithfulness. When you finally step outside, the tempest has passed and puddles mirror neon signage, broken ground reflecting light. You take that as God's benediction. Every fracture retains capacity to shine once touched by mercy. Muscles pleasantly sore from service, mind alert to injustice. Resources multiplied by generosity. You whisper thanks and pledge that tomorrow the cycle will continue. Eyes open, heart moved, hands busy, until earth's aches begin to echo heaven's quiet hymn of wholeness. You walk home beneath a western sky awash in rose and bronze. The day's final light stretching like a ribbon that ties earth to eternity. The breeze carries a hush that feels ancient, as if creation itself pauses to remember beginnings beyond calendars and endings beyond grief. In that spacious silence, you sense your smallness, yet it does not diminish you. Instead, it places every task, success, and setback into a grand mosaic where nothing faithful is wasted. You recall morning prayers, midday risks, evening gifts, and realize they now shimmer together like facets on a single jewel. Evidence that heaven has been threading golden cords through ordinary hours. Streetlights flicker on, mimicking the first stars, and you lift your chin toward that emerging canopy. What had been abstract hope now settles as concrete assurance. Tomorrow's unknowns already rest in hands that shaped constellations. The horizon widens inside you, an interior expanse where worry cannot squat for long because love keeps casting farther lines of vision. You picture distant generations inheriting choices you make tonight. The patient reply, the courageous apology, the silent intercession, and the weight of legacy steadies your stride. Eternity is not a distant shore. It is the tide already tugging at each moment, inviting you to build with materials that time cannot erode. As you turn onto your street, windows glow with domestic warmth. Tiny embers set against gathering night. You bless each home, imagining burdens exchanged for comfort, quarrels melting into laughter, loneliness greeted by unexpected knock. Such blessings feel small, yet you sense their resonance echoing beyond sight, vibrating in realms where prayers become architecture. You whisper gratitude that heaven's eyes have trained yours all day, noticing beauty in flaws, potential in scarcity, image of God in every passerby. Now those same eyes invite rest, confident that while you sleep, unseen hands will continue mending seams you cannot reach. You step through your doorway, the familiar scent of wood or spice grounding you, and place keys on a table like pilgrims lay staffs at sanctuary gates. You exhale the last residue of tension, inhaling peace that wraps around lungs like soft linen. Even chores, washing dishes, folding clothes, become liturgy when performed with awareness of eternity's gaze. You choose songs that speak of forever and let melodies cleanse the corridors of your mind. Minutes later, lights dimmed. You stand before a mirror and see more than your reflection. You glimpse traces of glory learned in the art of attentive living. Lines of fatigue linger, but behind them pulses quiet radiance, evidence that heaven's horizon has indeed seeped into earthly eyes. Before surrendering to sleep, you open curtains wide, allowing moonlight to baptize your room. You pray without words, a surrender as gentle as dewfall. Hold every fragment of this day inside your endless day. Then, trusting that eternity never tires, you slide beneath covers, heart anchored beyond night, spirit poised for dawn's next invitation. Let your breathing slow as dawn brightens the edges of thought. Remember how vision awakened, perspective lifted, compassion noticed, courage advanced, and hands restored. Invite those memories to braid into resolve. Today you will live alert to eternity, gentle toward weakness, unshaken by surprise, lavish in kindness. Picture the horizon, vast, luminous, unwavering, and rest in the certainty that its light already saturates the path before you. Carry that brilliance into every conversation, every task, every pause, until night returns and the cycle of grace begins anew.